Well, I guess we only got one choice.
Go for it.
For most fans, the Dukes of Hazzard was pure, small-town fun. Roaring engines, wild stunts, and that unmistakable orange Dodge Charger flying over dirt roads. But behind its carefree charm were moments the cameras caught, and the public was never meant to see. Hidden reels, cut scenes, and unscripted chaos told a darker, riskier story, one that nearly tore the show apart. These are the forbidden scenes no one was supposed to talk about, but today, we will. The forbidden footage. The cameras of the Dukes of Hazzard captured more than just slapstick car chases and good-natured southern mischief. They also filmed chaos, moments that went too far, scenes that defied television's boundaries, and stunts that pushed the cast and crew to their limits. While the world watched a family-friendly hit, the editing room told a different story. One of danger, defiance, and secrets that would stay buried for decades. In the world of Hazzard County, every jump was a miracle of timing, a split-second gamble between entertainment and disaster. But there was one jump that never made it to air. It was filmed on a sweltering Georgia afternoon, early in the show's second season. The stunt team prepared a massive leap for the General Lee, the kind that defined the series. Only this time, the landing went horribly wrong. When the car hit the ground, it didn't bounce gracefully like the ones before. It folded like tin, the chassis snapping, throwing debris in every direction. The stuntman inside suffered broken ribs, and production halted instantly. Witnesses say you could hear the crunch from hundreds of feet away. CBS executives were furious. The raw footage was deemed too violent, too graphic for network television. It was quietly removed from the episode and locked in the archives, never to resurface in syndication. The story spread among crew members like wildfire, the crash that almost ended the show. To this day, fans whisper about it. A missing stunt reel somewhere in the Warner Brothers vault sits, proof of the risks that made the Dukes of Hazzard both spectacular and deadly. Then there was her, Daisy Duke, the show's dazzling wild card. Katherine Bach's cut-off shorts became a national phenomenon, but they also drew network scrutiny. Executives at CBS worried the character's image walked a fine line between bold and indecent. In one early scene, Daisy was meant to distract a sheriff by climbing onto the hood of a car, a moment meant to be comedic, not sensual. But the camera's angle, paired with the way the light hit her outfit, turned the gag into something else entirely. When producers saw the playback, the decision was immediate. It would never air. Bach herself later said she felt torn, proud that Daisy symbolized confidence and independence, yet frustrated that so much attention was placed on her body. They made Daisy sexy, she once recalled, but they forgot she was supposed to be smart, too. Several Daisy-centric scenes were reshot or heavily edited to tone down her image. Still, nothing could stop her from becoming an icon or from giving rise to the term Daisy Dukes, a phrase that would outlive the show itself. Behind the camera, though, the tension was clear. The Dukes of Hazzard was straddling two worlds, wholesome Americana and the suggestive energy of 80s television that didn't quite know where to draw the line. Few people today realize how precarious the show's racial optics were. The Confederate flag emblazoned on the General Lee's roof was already a lightning rod for debate. While the producers claimed it was simply part of Southern culture, not a political statement, CBS censors were constantly monitoring scenes that could ignite controversy. One particular storyline involved an African-American sheriff from a neighboring county, a progressive inclusion for the time. But when test audiences reacted negatively to his mistreatment by white characters, CBS cut entire segments before broadcast. It was a quiet, preemptive move to avoid public outrage. Another cutscene featured Bo and Luke helping a group of black farmers resist a corrupt landowner, an attempt to portray unity across racial lines. Strangely, that episode never aired in full either. Some crew members claimed it didn't fit the show's tone. Others said it was deemed too politically sensitive. What remains certain is that the Dukes of Hazzard, for all its charm, reflected an America uneasy with change and often censored itself rather than confront uncomfortable truths head-on. Of all the forbidden images from the Dukes of Hazzard, none have sparked more debate than the General Lee itself. The bright orange Dodge Charger, emblazoned with the Confederate flag, became both a symbol of rebellion and a relic of division. At the time, producers saw it as harmless nostalgia, a nod to Southern car culture. But years later, as the flag became increasingly associated with racism, several episodes were quietly pulled from reruns. In 2015, after a tragic shooting in South Carolina reignited national debate over Confederate imagery, Warner Brothers stopped licensing new General Lee toys altogether. But the show's history reveals an even stranger truth. In one unaired scene, the car was vandalized, its flag symbolically painted over, a rare moment of introspection from the writers. The scene was cut before broadcast, likely to avoid controversy. The footage, reportedly destroyed, would have shown Bo Duke pausing before the defaced roof and saying, "Maybe it's time we repaint." Had that aired, it might have rewritten how history remembers the Dukes of Hazzard. Instead, the symbol endured, unchallenged, a time capsule of a bygone era that television chose to preserve, not question. For a show built on spectacle, the Dukes of Hazzard had a dangerously thin safety net. One of its most infamous lost scenes occurred during the filming of a chase sequence involving multiple cars and pyrotechnics. The stunt team had planned for 2 cars to collide mid-air, a first for the series. But something went wrong. The timing was off by fractions of a second. The 2 vehicles clipped each other at the wrong angle, exploding in a fireball that sent debris into the camera crew. Several operators were injured, and production was halted for weeks. That footage, too, was buried. The studio couldn't risk viewers associating the show's fun-loving image with real-life injury. The director reportedly called it the day the General Lee went too far. It was a sobering reminder that the line between illusion and danger was razor-thin. Every laugh, every wild stunt carried a cost, one the audience never saw. Behind-the-scenes disputes. But not every forbidden moment involved explosions or danger. Some were silenced for more political reasons. Throughout the show's run, creative tensions simmered between the producers and CBS executives. The writers wanted a grittier tone, more realism, more Southern satire. The network wanted Saturday night family comfort. One deleted scene, according to script notes, depicted Boss Hogg manipulating local elections, with Bo and Luke accidentally helping his scheme. The storyline was considered too political, especially during an election year, and was removed before filming wrapped. Another infamous instance involved Tom Wopat, Luke Duke, arguing over rewrites that made the characters seem, in his words, cartoonish. The argument escalated into a shouting match on set, captured partially on behind-the-scenes cameras. That tape, too, disappeared, reportedly confiscated by Warner Brothers to prevent media leaks. In the end, the Dukes of Hazzard's public image stayed squeaky clean, but only because so much of its reality was scrubbed away. Decades later, fragments of these forbidden moments have surfaced in rumors, convention panels, and the occasional leaked clip. Fans claim to have seen early VHS cuts with darker tones, extended stunts, or bloopers that reveal more than the network ever allowed. Some say a full uncut pilot exists, one with rougher humor and riskier themes before CBS sanitized it for national release. Whether true or not, these legends persist because they speak to something larger: the tension between authenticity and image, between danger and entertainment. The Dukes of Hazzard was never meant to be perfect. Its chaos, its accidents, its censorship, all of it mirrored the America it came from. And while those forbidden scenes may remain locked away, they tell the truest story of Hazzard County, one where good intentions met reckless ambition, and where the line between heroism and hazard blurred beyond recognition. But those weren't the only secrets the producers buried. Some scenes were erased not for what they showed, but for what they revealed about the people behind the show. More scenes they tried to forget. Not all forbidden moments from the Dukes of Hazzard were explosive or dangerous. Some were simply too strange, too real, or too uncomfortable for the show's carefully polished image. While the series celebrated fun-loving rebellion, not everything that made it to film was fit for the easygoing world of Hazzard County. Many of these scenes vanished quietly, edited out in late-night cuts, locked in storage rooms, or discarded to protect reputations. What remained on television was the illusion of innocence, but behind it lay a show constantly pushing, bending, and breaking its own rules. One of the earliest examples of this came from an episode that was meant to show a harmless bar fight between Bo, Luke, and a group of local troublemakers. The scene was supposed to end with laughter and a lesson about loyalty, but when the cameras rolled, things went too far. A stunt performer missed his cue and real punches were thrown. Bottles shattered for real, and one extra walked away with a deep cut across his cheek. The footage was too raw, too violent, and too real for a family comedy. CBS ordered the entire sequence removed before the episode aired. Only a few still frames remain in promotional reels, a hint of a fight that looked far too convincing for comfort. Then came a moment that was never scripted, but forever changed the tone on set. During a take between two cast members, accounts differ on who. It was meant to end in playful teasing. Instead, one actor leaned in and kissed the other, unplanned, right as the camera rolled. The director kept filming, caught between shock and curiosity. When the scene was screened later, the studio executives called an immediate meeting. It wasn't the kind of controversy the network wanted, especially for a show broadcast during primetime family hours. The footage was cut, the reels sealed, and everyone involved was reminded that improvisation had limits. Yet those who were there said the moment revealed something profound, that beneath the cheerful humor of Hazzard County were real emotions and unpredictable chemistry the show never dared explore. Another set of forbidden cuts came from a different kind of concern, not danger or scandal, but morality. Throughout its run, the Dukes of Hazzard carried the theme of rebellion, outsmarting corrupt sheriffs, running moonshine, and breaking every traffic law in the county. For the writers, that was the charm. But by the mid-'80s, CBS had begun tightening its content guidelines, pushing for cleaner, more family-oriented programming. Suddenly, scenes showing the Dukes outwitting the law with too much flair were frowned upon. In one instance, a line where Bo joked about teaching kids how to drive fast was ordered cut by the network's Standards and Practices division. Even the classic car chases were sometimes shortened to reduce the glorification of recklessness. The Dukes could still break the rules, but not too convincingly. As the show's success grew, so did its fan base, and with that came new kinds of controversy. Around the mid-'80s, rumors began circulating of international versions of the Dukes of Hazzard, airing uncut in countries with looser censorship rules. Fans claimed these prints included longer chase sequences, riskier humor, and even deleted shots of the cast between takes. In the pre-internet age, Such claims became urban legends, whispered at conventions and late-night reruns. One particularly persistent story involved a fan who supposedly bought a foreign VHS tape that contained scenes of Daisy Duke's wardrobe malfunctions during stunt rehearsals. While no such tape has ever surfaced publicly, the rumor alone added to the mythos of the forbidden Hazzard reels, a treasure trove of lost moments that blurred the line between fact and fandom. Censorship, however, wasn't just a network decision. It was often internal. The cast and crew themselves sometimes demanded that certain moments be scrapped. Katherine Bach reportedly objected to a few scenes that made Daisy appear helpless or overly dependent on the Duke boys, insisting that her character remain strong and capable. Her influence ensured Daisy evolved from eye candy into a self-reliant heroine, though it also meant that several early takes, where she was written as the damsel in distress, were quietly thrown out. Similarly, John Schneider and Tom Wopat occasionally intervened when dialogue felt too forced or cartoonish. They wanted their characters to remain human, not caricatures. Ironically, the cuts that followed often made the show feel smoother, lighter, and safer, but at the cost of some of its raw authenticity. There were also scenes cut for reasons that had nothing to do with content. Some were simply accidents of history. Film reels misplaced, audio tapes damaged in storage, or footage overwritten due to studio cost-saving practices. One editor once recalled that several stunts from Season 3 were lost forever when a reel melted under a faulty light during editing. "We didn't think about archiving," he said years later. "We thought about getting the next episode ready for Friday night." These vanished moments might not have been controversial, but they remain part of the legend, fueling speculation about what might still lie hidden in some forgotten Warner Brothers vault. The result of all these lost and censored moments was a version of the Dukes of Hazzard that the public only half knew. On the surface, it was good-natured chaos and slapstick charm. Underneath, it was a patchwork of bold, creative decisions and risk-taking performances constantly being trimmed to fit the narrow frame of American television in the 80s. The show walked an impossible tightrope, caught between the reality of rebellion and the demand for family-friendly entertainment. Every forbidden frame told the story of a show trying to stay wild in a world that wanted it tame. Even decades later, the fascination with these hidden scenes hasn't faded. Fans still dig through interviews, old behind-the-scenes tapes, and production notes, hunting for proof of what they were never meant to see. In the age of streaming and digital restoration, there are calls for an uncut version of The Dukes of Hazzard, a version truer to the spirit of its creators, raw and unfiltered. Whether those lost moments resurface or remain myths doesn't really matter anymore. What matters is that they exist in the imagination, a reflection of the show's unruly soul. The Dukes of Hazzard was more than a TV hit. It was a living contradiction, both wholesome and rebellious, innocent and daring. The forbidden scenes are its shadows, reminders that even the brightest corners of pop culture have secrets worth chasing. But for the cast and crew, the real drama wasn't always in the footage. It was in the chaos behind the cameras, where fame, fatigue, and creative clashes told their own story. The chaos behind the cameras. Behind the good-natured mischief of the Dukes of Hazzard was a set that often felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. To the audience, Hazzard County looked like the friendliest town on television, a place where everyone was family and every chase ended with a laugh. But away from the cameras, tension simmered between actors, producers, and studio executives. The show that brought so much joy to millions was, for many of those making it, a test of endurance, ego, and survival. At the heart of that turmoil were the Duke cousins themselves, John Schneider and Tom Wopat. In the early seasons, their chemistry was electric, the perfect blend of charm and recklessness. But as the show's popularity soared, so did the question of pay. Schneider and Wopat learned that the Dukes of Hazzard had become one of CBS's biggest hits, raking in millions in merchandise sales from toy General Lees to lunchboxes. Yet, the two leads were making far less than actors on comparable series. Frustration built quietly, until in 1982 it erupted. Both Schneider and Wopat walked off the set, demanding fair pay and a share of the merchandising profits. Production was thrown into chaos. CBS scrambled to keep the show alive, introducing two new replacement Dukes, Coy and Vance. But the audience wasn't fooled. Ratings plummeted, fans protested, and critics mocked the studio's desperation. Behind the scenes, tempers flared. Crew members who'd worked with Schneider and Wopat for years felt betrayed. Others blamed the network for greed. After months of stalled negotiations, the original Dukes finally returned, but the damage was done. The strike had cracked the illusion of the show's happy family, exposing the business realities behind its small-town charm. While pay disputes raged, Katherine Bach was fighting a quieter battle of her own. As Daisy Duke, she had become an icon, her image printed on posters, calendars, and billboards across America. But that fame came with a price. Bach was under constant pressure to maintain her look, facing criticism about her outfits and weight from producers who saw her as both a character and a marketing tool. She later admitted that the attention could be suffocating. "Everyone thought Daisy was perfect," she said in an interview years later. "But I was just trying to survive Hollywood's version of perfection." Off-screen, Bach pushed to give Daisy more substance, more lines, more independence, and fewer moments where her role revolved around her looks. Her insistence often clashed with the male-dominated writing team, who worried that changing Daisy's image would break the formula. Yet Bach persisted, and slowly, Daisy evolved from a pin-up into a symbol of confidence and wit. The chaos extended beyond the stars. The show's stunt crew, arguably the real backbone of the Dukes of Hazzard, was pushed to extremes few could imagine. Each week, they were tasked with performing increasingly dangerous car jumps, crashes, and chases. The General Lee became both a legend and a curse. More than 300 Chargers were reportedly destroyed during the show's run. Stuntmen were injured regularly, and production often fell behind schedule due to wrecked vehicles and technical mishaps. The adrenaline-fueled culture that made the show exciting also made it unpredictable. Some crew members described the set as organized chaos, where last-minute rewrites, misfiring pyrotechnics, and malfunctioning equipment were part of daily life. Yet, somehow, the team pulled it off, turning risk into entertainment that millions tuned in for every week. Adding to the tension was the unrelenting pace of production. Episodes were filmed quickly to keep up with network demand, often with multiple units shooting simultaneously across rural Georgia. Cast members were expected to work long hours in intense heat, with little rest. According to some insiders, tempers flared frequently. One assistant director once recalled a shouting match between the crew and a producer who ordered more stunts in a single day than the team could safely perform. "We were exhausted," he said. "People were getting hurt, and all they cared about was the next big jump." Even among the show's veterans, conflicts brewed. Denver Pyle, who played Uncle Jesse, was beloved by the cast, but often clashed with directors over moral messages in the script. Pyle believed the show had a responsibility to remain wholesome, a family story about loyalty and goodness. When episodes leaned too heavily into slapstick or suggestive humor, he reportedly voiced his disapproval. He saw the Dukes as more than outlaws, one crew member recalled. He saw them as examples. His moral compass often grounded the younger cast, even when chaos surrounded them. Then, there was the constant push and pull with CBS itself. Executives wanted a show that captured the heart of rural America without offending city audiences. That balancing act created tension with the creative team, who felt the network's interference stripped the series of authenticity. Storylines that touched on real social issues, corruption, small-town poverty, or racial tension were often softened or cut entirely. The result was a series that looked effortless on screen, but was often the product of exhausting compromise behind the scenes. By the later seasons, that tension began to show. The camaraderie that had once defined the cast felt thinner, the smiles a bit more rehearsed. The show had become a machine, profitable, polished, but drained of the spontaneous joy that had fueled its early years. Even as it remained a ratings hit, fatigue set in. For some, the end of the Dukes of Hazzard in 1985 felt less like a cancellation and more like a mercy. Still, for all the arguments, exhaustion, and danger, the cast never stopped recognizing what they'd created. They were part of something bigger than themselves, a show that, despite its flaws, brought laughter, adrenaline, and mere nostalgia to millions. The chaos behind the cameras only made the magic on screen more remarkable. Beyond the controversies and the chaos, it was the people behind the wheel, the cast themselves, who gave Hazzard County its heart and soul. Life beyond Hazzard County. When the engines finally quieted and the dust settled over Hazzard County, the stars of the Dukes of Hazzard found themselves facing a strange new reality. For years, they had lived as the Duke family, faces of small-town heroism, mischief, and charm. But fame, especially the kind born from a cultural phenomenon, has a way of clinging tightly. For some, life after the Dukes of Hazzard was a new adventure. For others, it was a long road toward rediscovery. John Schneider, forever remembered as Bo Duke, the blonde, grinning daredevil with a heart of gold, was the show's golden boy. His youthful charisma had helped anchor the series, and when the cameras stopped rolling, he refused to slow down. Schneider turned to music, launching a country career that surprised critics and delighted fans. His 80s singles, including It's Now or Never and I've Been Around Enough to Know, climbed the charts and proved that Bo Duke wasn't the only thing he could be. But Schneider's path wasn't just about fame, it became about purpose. In later years, he turned to philanthropy, founding the Children's Miracle Network with Marie Osmond and others, an effort that has since raised billions for children's hospitals. Despite personal hardships, including the loss of his wife, Schneider stayed committed to his faith and his fans, becoming not just a nostalgic figure, but an enduring example of resilience. Tom Wopat, who played Luke Duke, the quieter, more level-headed cousin, carved a very different path. After the Dukes of Hazzard, Wopat returned to what had always been his first love, the stage. A seasoned performer before his Hazzard days, he found success on Broadway, earning Tony Award nominations for his roles in Annie Get Your Gun and A Catered Affair. His smooth baritone voice carried him into music as well, where he recorded albums that blended country, jazz, and swing. Though he occasionally revisited his television roots, Wopat found his peace in performance, far from the dust trails and stunt jumps that defined his early fame. His career wasn't without turbulence. Public struggles and controversies occasionally cast shadows, but Wopat's artistry endured. To his fans, he was still Luke Duke, but on his own terms. Katherine Bach's story is one of transformation. As Daisy Duke, she was the spark of the Dukes of Hazzard, vibrant, confident, and unforgettably stylish. Her image became one of the most recognizable in television history, but that fame came with expectations that often overshadowed her talent. When the show ended, Bach faced the same challenge many actresses of her era did: how to move beyond the role that made her famous. She appeared in films and guest roles, but her influence lingered most through the legacy of her character. Daisy Dukes became a part of American vocabulary, not just a look, but a symbol of confidence, independence, and femininity. In later years, Bach devoted time to her family and personal healing, especially after personal loss. When she returned to acting, it was with a quieter grace, less the flirtatious icon, more the seasoned survivor who had seen the highs and lows of Hollywood and kept her spirit intact. Among the veterans of Hazzard County, none embodied the show's heart like Denver Pyle, James Best, and Sorrel Book. Pyle, who played Uncle Jesse, was the moral compass of the series, a gentle patriarch whose wisdom and humor grounded the chaos around him. Off-screen, he was much the same: generous, soft-spoken, and fiercely protective of his younger castmates. His passing in 1997 marked the end of an era, though his image as the heart of the Duke family remains immortal. James Best, beloved as the bumbling Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane, brought a mix of slapstick humor and warmth that made audiences adore a character who could have easily been a villain. Best was more than a comic actor. He was a teacher, a painter, and a mentor. After Hazzard, he taught acting to hundreds of aspiring performers, sharing lessons from decades in Hollywood. He passed away in 2015, but his joy, his infectious laugh, and childlike energy remains one of the show's brightest memories. Then there was Sorrel Book, the man behind the greedy yet oddly lovable Boss Hogg. A Yale-educated actor, fluent in several languages, Book was a master of character work. His exaggerated Southern drawl was a creation of pure theatrical genius. Off-camera, he was a scholar, a perfectionist, and a gentleman, a contrast to his loud, scheming alter ego. His death in 1994 was deeply felt by fans and co-stars alike. Together, Pyle, Best, and Book represented the old guard of the Dukes of Hazzard, professional actors whose craft elevated a show that might otherwise have been dismissed as light-hearted fluff. As the years rolled on, the cast found ways to reunite, both on-screen and off. Television specials, conventions, and anniversary tours kept the Duke's spirit alive. Fans lined up for hours to see the General Lee, to meet the stars who had once raced through their childhoods every Friday night. Reunions were often emotional, not just nostalgia trips, but reminders of how deeply the show had touched people. In a world that had grown faster, louder, and more cynical, the Dukes of Hazzard still represented something pure and familiar. For the cast, those gatherings weren't just fan service, they were family reunions. Schneider often said that despite the years and the headlines, Hazzard County never really left us. In many ways, he was right. Each actor carried a piece of it, the laughter, the chaos, the loyalty, into the rest of their lives. The show might have ended, but the bonds it forged, both real and imagined, never broke. Their journeys beyond Hazzard proved that even when the cameras stop rolling, the stories and the people who tell them can keep driving on. Thanks for sticking up until the end. Click subscribe for more Hollywood deep dive stories.